In the short run equilibrium, there could be four situations which can arise. A firm can earn supernormal profits, which means excessive profits. It can have a break-even point and a normal profits. The total losses may be minimized, which means it may have losses, but they may be minimized. Or it could be in such a situation of loss that it has to ultimately shut down. Let us see all these four situations in case of a short-run equilibrium. Now in this diagram, if you see, this particular line represents the price which a firm derives. Okay? The first line represents the average cost curve and the second line represents the marginal cost curve. Right? When you look at the marginal cost curve, you notice that at point E, since this is the marginal cost curve which is there and this is the price line which is there, at point E the price is equal to the marginal cost, right? Suppose at this point where the price or the marginal revenue is equal to the marginal cost, the quantity which is produced is OX, right? At this point, if you see, the average cost, which represents the cost per unit of production, is point C, right? Therefore, the company is making a profit. How much profit? Your revenue or the price line is P, your cost is Z. The company is making huge profits, which is something represented by this particular portion, right? So these are the supernormal profits which the company makes. In the short run, wherever the average cost is less than the equilibrium price or the marginal cost at that particular point, the firm makes supernormal profits. Now in this situation, if you notice, if the price is OP1, right, at point which is highlighted over here, let's call this as E1. At point E1, the average cost is equal to the marginal cost is equal to the price OP1, right? So at price P1, both the average cost and marginal cost are equal, right? And these are equal to the price. At this point, since the average cost and the price are same, right? The profits of the firm are equal to 0. And when the profits are equal to 0, that we know that that point is known as the break-even point. The second thing we need to note over here is that from point E1 onwards, the marginal cost slope is greater than 0, which means that it is higher than the price which is there. And therefore, if the firm produces anything more than this, they are going to start incurring losses. So a break-even point is the point in the short run where your price is equal to the average cost, right? Which is also in this case equal to the marginal cost, and the slope of marginal cost is greater than 0. Now in this case, if you notice, at a price P2, okay, we find that when the output is X2, right, in the short run, there is an equilibrium point here. Why? Because at this point, the marginal cost is equal to the price, right? However, at this equilibrium point, where marginal revenue is equal to the marginal cost, we refer to as E2, if you look at it, the average cost on this particular line, point C, is higher than the revenue. If the average cost is greater than the price P2, obviously the firm is going to incur losses, and that loss portion is something which is highlighted over here. So what this means is, while at P2 the marginal cost is something which the firm is able to cover, since the average cost is including not only the marginal cost but also the fixed cost, the firm is unable to cover all the fixed costs at this particular price, and therefore it is going to incur certain losses. Now in case of a shutdown point, what happens is, when would a company decide to shut down? Think of it logically, that if there are fixed cost and variable cost, right? Variable cost, the firm may or may not be able to cover, right? But fixed cost is something which it has to cover, because if it is unable to cover the fixed cost, then it has no option. There's no reason why you should be producing, right? So in certain situation, what can happen is, let's say in this case, if the firm is having a price of OP3, there's an output of OX3 at which the average variable cost is hardly touching the price point. If you see this average variable cost curve, what it implies is that in most of the part, it is above the price level. It is barely touching the price line at a particular point, which means that the price are not even able to cover the variable cost, right? Not covering. If they are not able to cover the variable cost itself, then what's the point? The fixed cost in any case is going to be a loss. To add up to that, even the variable costs are above the price line, which means that the firm is not operating at optimal profit, right? Because of this, they incur losses which are so significant that the firm decides that it may no longer be a good idea to produce, and therefore they decide to shut down.